following program is being funded by the Harmony Hill Performing Arts Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages, welcome to the Overall View, the program that lets you see from God's perspective the entire world and how God sees it all. Your hostess for this travel adventure is Josephine Russo, presenting for you the big picture. Because once you see the larger picture, everything else will seem smaller by comparison. May your troubles be few and your vision be large. And now, here's Josephine Russo.
Welcome, Mrs. Campbell, to an Overall View. Thanks so much for being my special guest. This show is about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and you fit the bill, Mrs. Campbell. And I'd like to thank, before we begin, LinCam TV, Peabody Access Telecommunications for this beautiful studio, film producer Alfred Nesser, and I'm the host of the show. I'm Josephine Russo, and my guest, Mrs. VeAnne Campbell from St. Joseph's Harvest of Hope Food Pantry in Salem. Please be so welcome, and how would you like to begin?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, everybody. And I thank you, Josephine. You have a wonderful show, and I've seen some pretty nice people on it. And I'm thrilled to have been invited. Thank you. I like the beginning of the show, and I wanted to pick up a little bit to say it's God's view of things and things that happen, because I love what I do, but I didn't plan to do it. Sort of, I feel I was put there, and I must belong there because I really enjoy it, and I've been doing it for 10 years, and it was not my plan. I was working in a hospital in the OR tech as an OR tech.
Right.
And I actually gave up my career and my income to do the food pantry. And it was all, I don't know how it happened.
Someone in need came
to
you.
Yes. Well, to start with, I gave a can of spaghetti sauce to the food pantry. That was the big mistake right there. Now I work like 80 hours a week. And it just, things sort of traveled along, and really God placed me there, and which I'm thrilled.
Now you just moved to a new location. You want to talk about that?
Yes, I do. I am so thrilled with the new location. What happened was we were at St. Joseph's Church, and that closed because the Archdiocese closed several churches. So we moved over about 6 years ago to Immaculate Conception. Wonderful place. But they're going to be doing some renovations, and they sort of warned me that within a year or so they're going to do renovations. So it sent me on a search for a new place. And that was quite a search, because that took me months to find the right place. Salem is pretty crowded with businesses, and some things come up that are super expensive, and some things don't fit the bill. And a few times I thought I found the space, but I didn't know that God had planned this one particular space on 13 Franklin Street for me, because when I walked in, I said, this is the place. And I am so thrilled to be there for several reasons. One, it's a good sized place. We have both sides of the building, and we're working on one side that we haven't finished the construction on. But, and we have the main part, which some volunteers constructed from me, and they used the materials from our old food pantry. They did that, the goodness of their hearts. The Lawrence police workers came from the prison up there in Lawrence. They did a lot of construction, which they do as a community service. So we were very blessed with that.
Yes.
And now we have, it's pretty nice in there. We have a couple of, three offices. We have our reception area, which is very lovely. And in there we have one wall, which is our history. It just shows our faith and where we came from, because this is not a church, it's a building, but we did want to demonstrate that, for me, what we do is with faith.
Yes.
And share miracles sometimes.
Yes.
And we wanted to demonstrate that. So one wall has our religious items, some signs about our history, some people who were very instrumental in the beginning of the food pantry.
So wonderful.
Yeah. And we have wonderful workers, makes me happy. We have volunteers, and we have a couple of low-income workers. And it's just thrilling to me that it all works. I don't know why it all works, but we have a lot of food which God has provided, and we've had donations of financial donations help, and we've had donations of food, and we have some dealers that like deal in meat that help us. So we always have this abundance to give out, which has been provided by God. And another reason I'm very happy there is I have a wonderful landlord there, John Anisi. He was kind enough to give us at a reasonable rate the place, and it's just the perfect spot. It just lends it. We have a dock, which we didn't have before, for bringing the truck up with the food. We service 4,000 families, so we use about 40,000 pounds of food a month. We give out a lot of food. Oh yes, it's in and it's out. We give out a lot of food. We always have produce, we always have milk, we always have cheese and meat and eggs. We give that. And we have a Staples bag also that we give, which is, you know, your pasta and sauce. And we give all that kind of food. But we do a lot of other things. We have 16 community programs besides the food. We have the largest free grocery delivery on the North Shore to the elderly and disabled.
How wonderful is that?
That is fantastic. It's like a whole program in and of itself.
Of itself.
Yeah, yeah. And we have 39 volunteers that are very active. We have 98 volunteers, but we have 39 active volunteers that are always involved in the food pantry every week, one time or another.
Yes.
And that is thrilling for me, because when I first took over the food pantry, there were 2 volunteers, and one of the men said, yeah, where are you going to get volunteers? And I said, I don't know. But God has provided these wonderful people that work with us. And we have National Senior Network, which is a program for older people who might want to work and earn a little income. And it's a government program while they're looking for other jobs. And that helps us a lot, too. So we've really been blessed with all those things, because as much as I, quote, am the director, the executive director now, but it's the people underneath you, as you know. It's the people who support you and do all the work behind you that make a place run. And sometimes I've gotten a lot of volunteer awards, awards from the Greater Boston Food Bank, awards from banks, all kinds of awards. But it's the people underneath me that deserve the award. And I like to tell a funny thing about those volunteers. One time, we have a lot of men volunteers as well as women. And one time I had a whole group of men in front of me. It was like 8 men. And I'm going, okay, you're going to go deliver here, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. And you're going to go pick up food in Boston, and you're going to empty the truck that's coming in. I'm telling all these men what to do. And they're all smiling. And I started to laugh when I got to the last one, and they said, what are you laughing at? I said, imagine a woman telling 8 men what to do, and they do it. I mean, you know, I said, even when I was young, I couldn't tell one man what to do, you know. So, and it's a thrill, because they're wonderful, wonderful individuals. And every single volunteer I've had has been wonderful to me. And a lot of them have come and gone, because you're not going to stay forever volunteering in one place.
Yes, I know
but,
that.
God has always sent someone new. Sometimes I feel sad when a volunteer comes to me and they might have been out of work and they were with me for a while, but then they leave and I go, oh, I'm happy for you, but I'm not really happy because they were such a good worker. You know, I'm like, oh, there they go. But then someone else walks in and we are provided for, and I really don't think it's an accident that those things happen.
Right.
And it's really a joy. Really.
Do you want to talk about Christmas at all?
Oh yes, what a wonderful Christmas we had. We went from devastation to elation. That's what I told people. We had a problem because of the robbery of the Toys for Tots. And that affected us even after they got toys. Because when we went back, they were serving so many people, and we never got our toys from them that normally we would get. And we had 860 children waiting for toys, and we had about enough for 150 of those kids. And we were in a panic. We were like, how are we going to serve these children? We don't have and mothers were calling us, and it was getting closer and closer to Christmas.
Yes.
So we went to the Salem News. We were in the news. And word of mouth, too. And donors started coming. They came with beautiful toys. They came with money. And Eastern Bank was so gracious to give us money. And so was Berry Charities. Anyway, they were great to us. And do you know how fast women can shop and buy toys with money?
Wow.
If you have a couple thousand to spend on toys, believe me, we did it in less than a half an hour. And then we had people donating gift cards. We got a lot of gift cards. And for the older children, we were able to give them gift cards, which is kind of great for them because, you know, when kids get older, you give them a sweater or something, they don't want it. They wanted something. And either they can buy what they want or they can put it towards something that they really wanted.
Right.
So it all worked out. But we had to work late every single night. And I do have to mention Doreen Thomas. Yes, you were there. And Doreen Thomas and Jeanette Reynolds. They all helped me. They worked.
Tirelessly.
I can't even tell you.
Yes.
And it was confusing.
Yes.
But you know, it all worked out in the end.
Yes.
And it makes your own Christmas feel good.
Yes.
And I always tell donors, like, we collect money for holiday meals, and we do one of the hugest packages of holiday meals of any agency in the area. We do 1,200 Thanksgiving meals. And they're not meals food, they're groceries. You know, you can cook your own turkey.
Yeah.
And we do equivalent to Christmas, which we do hams. And what happens is, I always tell a donor, if you donate $25, and we can buy a whole meal because we go to the Greater Boston Food Bank, we get some donations, we get some government food. So for $25, we can provide a whole dinner for a family. For a family, not just one person, but for a family with maybe 2 or 3 children. And when you give, you become part of me, money-wise. You become part of me because you're at their table. You might as well knock on the door and say, here I am, because you paid for the meal.
Right.
You let that family have a whole meal. And I know what it's like not to have a Thanksgiving meal, because when I was young, I came from poverty. My sister and I were so thrilled when we were little girls and we went to the Salvation Army and picked up the turkey dinner that we had arranged, my mother had arranged for us to get. And we go, we got a turkey dinner. But some people have chicken, some people have chicken fingers, and people don't realize that. So when you pay for a meal, you're part of them and you're part of us. So I always,
now the donations can be dropped off at 13 Franklin Street, right?
They can be dropped off at 13
Like if
Franklin.
someone wants to donate food, they drop it off there.
Yeah.
But the check donations, if they're not dropped off,
they go to the P.O. Box 876.
876,
Right.
in care of St. Joseph's Harvest of Hope.
Right. It says Harvest of Hope Food Pantry, and it St. Joseph's Harvest of Hope, by the way.
In
We
Salem.
don't leave St. Joseph's out of it. He came with us.
Yeah.
But anyway, and it's P.O. Box 876. And the reason we like that, it kind of keeps all the mail together, and then we can send out our thank yous, and we can record what we got.
Yes.
and we do that there.
I'm very
And then-
blessed to be a part of it.
Yes,
Because I
am
work for
thrilled to have-
Able, and I'm the receptionist there.
Yes,
So that's a real blessing in these hard times, Mrs. Campbell, because growing up, I never had a problem in my whole life. I've worked ever since I was in high school, ever getting a job.
Wow.
And now, you know, it's a bit difficult.
it is. There was a time when people could go, walk into a place and be hired.
Right.
I myself worked in 2 different hospitals, but getting a job was easy for me.
Yes, always.
I had some
Always.
part-time jobs beyond the hospital because we had times when things were tight bringing up the family. And you could always walk in and they'd
Yeah.
say, can you start Monday?
Yeah.
It's not that way anymore when
No.
200 or 400 people are applying for the same job.
Right.
Sometimes they don't even look at resumes because
And
they
now
don't
you
look at
need
so many.
really to be computer literate.
That's definite. Everything, whether you're a
Everything-
cashier, or you're an auto mechanic, or you're just a receptionist, you have to know computer skills. You have to have computer skills.
Well, not only that, very, very few places have handwritten applications. Remember years ago, you just filled out the application? Now they have the computer, and you need to know the computer to apply. Stop and Shop, Price Right, Target,
CVS.
CVS, even Walgreens.
Yeah.
And I used to work for Walgreens as a cashier.
You-
But no longer can you walk in and say, oh, you know, I'm experienced cashier.
Yeah. Well, I'm good at the computer, but I will tell you, one time I went to apply for pharmacy tech, which I had been once in my life. I did a lot with medications and pharmacy in the hospital, too. I was cross-trained as a unit secretary at tech, and I did a lot of different jobs. But I went into CVS, and they have a little machine, you know, and it's like a
Yeah.
computerized machine.
Yeah.
I messed up so bad. I said they would never hire this person in the world because unless you've done it once, now I think if you went back a second time, you might be better at it, but their machine, you know, had certain
Yeah.
criteria, and I'm pushing the wrong button, and I said, uh-oh, you know what I mean? Like,
No, that
it
happened
was,
to me.
yeah, and I didn't know what was going on, so it's challenging today.
It is challenging today.
Yeah.
And even, I'm very grateful for the program of the Senior Network, and I'm very grateful to Able that trains us
Yeah.
and pays us. Also, that they have free training on the computer, and they train you for a variety of different jobs. I'm very blessed to have that opportunity because as a low-income person, I can't afford to pay for computer classes, you know?
Right.
And it's an absolute necessity.
Have you ever noticed how many older people, I'm talking really older now, are bagging at the markets, pushing the carts? And the problem is that no one can afford to live on their Social Security or their benefits.
Yes.
They will not even pay for you to live in an apartment, to buy your food. There's not enough money. So
No.
you have people in their late 70s, their
Yes.
late 80s, working. They can't say, oh, I'm going to retire. Now, there are some people fortunate enough they had big pensions or they could retire, or maybe they always earned a good income and were able to save. A lot of us just lived on what we had.
Right.
And I think that people are working now older and older and they can't quit.
And you're very lucky if you're older and you're working because a lot of us can't get jobs.
You can't get jobs, and then as you get older, you get
Because
disabled
there's young
too.
people, college graduates, looking for work.
Right.
You know, and so if you're a company or a corporation, you know how it goes. I
Right.
mean, are you going to hire an elderly person when you can get this young kid? I don't think so.
That's right. That's
You know,
right.
so you're right. I mean, Social Security did not give us a raise.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a bit challenging.
Right.
We're
And as
living
every
in
individual-
challenging times.
Right, right.
But we can be hopeful and thankful in this new year. There are many, many blessings.
There are, and sometimes the blessings are unexpected. You know, you get these blessings, something breaks for you. And there are jobs out there, believe me, everyone, there are jobs. It's just finding them and being chosen for them. You know, sometimes you get up to it's you and another person, the other person gets the job. Somebody has to get the job. But there are jobs out there if you're looking, and you should never get discouraged. Don't get discouraged, don't get down. Look, you know, look and seek, and you will find. That's sort of biblical.
Right.
Know?
I'd like you to tell the story of the person you helped, the miracle story.
Which one?
Which is many miracles.
Yeah, there
The
are
girl
so many.
at Christmas.
At Christmas, okay.
Yeah, that story.
We had a young family, a husband, a wife, and a little 7-month-old baby who were evicted from their apartment 3 weeks before Christmas. And the wife had been attacked actually by a pit bull, and she had all these marks on her arms. It was sad, but she called me up out of the clear blue, and she was so distraught that you couldn't understand what she was saying. Low-income family, the dad's disabled, and they had like a $1,400 income. That's not much for an apartment, and et cetera. So the mother was so distraught that you couldn't understand what she was saying. And I told her on the phone, I said, look, you've got to calm down so I know what you need. So she calmed down a little bit. She was saying she was evicted, that they only had enough money for one day in the hotel, and they had to be out by noon, and they didn't know what they were going to do, and they had the 7-month-old baby. She had called some other agencies, but unfortunately the funding was out. They couldn't help for this reason, they couldn't help for that. Because a lot of agencies have rules, regulations, and they have a limit on their budget.
Right.
And so do we have. We have a very small budget because we don't have as much money as those agencies. But I said, I'll come over and talk to you. So I went over and met the baby. It was so cute. And I sat with her, and she was crying. And I said, I don't want you to cry anymore. I want you to stop. And I want you to have faith that everything's going to be okay. I said, I can't afford to keep you here. We don't have that kind of money. But I won't desert you. And I'm going to pay for one day. That gives us one day to figure out what to do. And I said, tonight I'm going to go up on the internet with your story. And it was $1,680 to stay there until their apartment would be ready. So I went up on the internet, but not just with her story. There were 5 different children that were very ill. One had, a little 9-year-old girl was having part of her bowel removed. Another child was autistic. There was a child that was going to be in the hospital during Christmas. These kind of things. And I put those children's names out there. Well, within 2 hours, all those families were sponsored by people that don't even live in Salem, outer areas, Woburn, Burlington, you know, all around, but Linfield, but not in our area. And 2 women called me up and actually said, I'm all upset because all the families are taken, and I wanted to help someone. I said, I'm sure I can find a couple extra kids. But the amazing thing was that a young woman called me. She's in her early 30s. She's way from out of this area. She said, I am a very successful businesswoman, and I will pay the $1,680, the entire thing for them to stay there. I was floored. She doesn't know them, but she wanted to do something at Christmas for someone. So she did, and we were able to pay for them to stay there. And which thrilled, this is the next morning, I'm telling her this, and she's like, really? You know, said you have to have faith. If you don't have positive and you don't have faith, you've got to have it. And you've got to believe that I will help you through it. I can't provide everything, but I feel very much that God uses me as a conduit, like a wire. Like this hand comes here, and that one comes to you. Yes. I've had it happen so often.
Yes.
And I don't do anything. I'm just there in between. And I think that God uses people.
Yes.
He does. He can't
Yes,
come
he
here
does.
himself. And the Spirit in you, this in you, moves you to do something. And I'm
Amen.
there
That's
in
true.
between sometimes
Very
because you
true.
don't know who needs the help.
That's true.
But at any rate, then it turned out I started helping, I networked a little bit about housing, and we were able to get them into a very affordable, very nice apartment that they can afford themselves. Because my goal is to make sure they can do it themselves. I can't keep going out and
No,
asking.
because you don't
I
wanna
tell
be
them,
an enabler.
I said, you have to be independent.
Yes.
And you know, but I help them look.
Get on their feet.
And I help them find a place.
Yes.
And we were able to do that all with the aid of other people. But I told them, now you've got to be independent. It's up to you to budget your mother. It's up to you to keep this place. But that desperate need, you couldn't overlook it. But when I talk about the spirit that the people out there have and the spirit that you have, I'm just going to revert a little bit to one of Christ's prayer. The actual prayer of Christ, besides the Our Father, was the prayer he said in Gethsemane. We are one. I am one with you. They are one with me. We are one with each other. And if you read the prayer, he says these things over and over again. And I'm one with this and one with that, you know, and it's kind of an amazing prayer. And now, scientifically, they've proven we are all one. And in that way, see, this table's made with molecules, and if you could see it enlarged, you could put your hand through it.
Oh.
You're made of molecules. We're actually connected. Now, did you ever go in a room where two people don't like each other, and some people say you could cut the knife with
Yes.
the air with a knife?
Yes. This
If
tension.
I send good vibes out to you, I pray for you. I go home and I say a prayer for you. I'm sending out my wishes for you, my prayers for you. If I don't like you and I'm sending out evil, because evil goes out there too, I really believe it.
Yes.
There's some evil things
Yes.
you can cut the air with the knife.
That's scriptural.
But it's very scriptural, but it's also scientific. So when you have a spirit to help others,
Yes.
and I have a spirit to help others, you can almost feel it. You can almost feel it. And people do the work of that spirit in them. And I'm not saying they have to be Christian. They have a God spirit. They have a spirit within them. It's very important for all of you to have it because life beats you around.
Yes.
And I want to say that life is a cycle. You have tragedy, you have grief,
Yes.
you have happiness, you have success, you don't have success, you have failure, which is not failure, it's a lesson.
You know what I
You know, this
noticed about
circle
you,
about-
Mrs. Campbell?
What?
When you lost your husband,
Yes.
I had just started working. And I'm sure you were in deep grief. And yet, you moved and kept going with that food pantry.
Yes. Well,
God bless you for that.
My dear husband, 46 years of marriage, a wonderful marriage, and a wonderful man who I learned a lot about God from him. And I could tell a little story, it's not long. I was young when I met David, I was 17. He told me, the last thing he told me from the moment he met me, he loved me every day of our lives. He was a quiet man behind me always, and I'm aggressive.
Yes.
He would never go up and say, you got $25 for the food pantry. He would never do that. He was very Christian, but he never would talk about it unless you said, do you think there's a God? Then he would talk with you.
Yes.
But
getting
he
ready
just
to
lived it.
close the
Oh,
show.
well, anyway, I just want to say that I learned from him that the reason people need help, because the Pharisees said to Jesus, why is this man born deaf and dying? And he said, so the work of God can be done. And if you're not a receiver, sometimes it's harder to be a receiver.
Yes.
Or you're not a giver.
Yes.
We'd be like animals.
Yeah.
We'd never help another person. And that's what it's all about, helping each other. That's what it's all about.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
for being my guest.
Oh,
And the show is about ordinary people every day that do extraordinary things.
they're there.
And that is you, Mrs. VeAnne Campbell,
Thank you.
a very extraordinary woman in a quiet, wonderful way that keeps on every day serving and helping the poor, the broken, and all those in need. Thank you so much.
Funded by the Harmony Hill Performing Arts Foundation.